Yo, this is Flip Gordon. You're listening to the Top Rope Nation podcast.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it! It's the best thing going today.
What a week, guys. After traveling thousands of miles, we're finally back here. Episode 54 of Top Rope Nation. I'm your host, Ryan Drosty, joined here by Kyle Ross and Justin Joint. We are just a few days removed from convening as a podcast group in New Orleans for WrestleMania weekend. A hell of a week, I've got to say. I have been trying to recover all week long. I'm still pretty tired. I don't know about you guys. Justin, have you recovered from the trip yet?
No, actually, I missed work today. I've been having some stomach issues.
Uh-oh. Is that jambalaya we had?
I think so, man. It's all that New Orleans food and booze.
I don't know. What was the other restaurant we got the jambalaya and we had the Bloody Marys too, and it was like all spicy food we were eating?
Coops.
Good place, really small, but really good food. But I'm not the biggest spicy food fan, but it's like, it's that kind of thing. When in Rome, you got to do it. So I took it all in, and it was pretty spicy. It was good, though. It was good. Kyle, how are you holding up?
I'm doing well. I was just thinking, do you know where we were at this time last week?
We're at Mercury Rising, my friend.
Yes, we had just met for the first time, and we were crushing beers with absolutely no idea just how much of a surcharge Uber would be hitting us with in a few hours.
That's true. Justin and I were hanging out waiting for an Uber, and you did the Janella show after that. You were hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. That was little did I know. I think there was a big theme of not just, everyone always talks about how long WrestleMania is. But, man, I think that was a theme for a lot of the shows that they were, they could have trimmed, lost a half hour or so off every show.
That's for sure.
I had a great time. I had a great time. I really wish you guys would have stayed for Janella because it was a real hoot, man. It was sweet. Although the ride back, as I alluded to, was very difficult to get, and it took a long time. But yeah, great show.
I think Justin and I thought you were like up all night because as we found out today, our text thread is not sending messages all the time at the proper times, and we got a message from you at like was it like 4 or 5 in the morning, and it was like getting dinner now. We were like, what the hell? Getting dinner now at 4 or 5 in the morning? You're like at the casino getting dinner now or something. I'm guessing that wasn't the actual time you sent that.
No. Oh, I didn't know that this was a long-term problem. I just thought this was yesterday for our podcast schedule. Oh,
no, this has been since New Orleans.
Yeah, I wasn't for sure that that's what was happening. I thought maybe the timestamps were off, but yeah. That's what's been going on. Luckily, we're still able to meet up, man.
Yeah.
My first image of Kyle Ross in person was you walking up to the big line to get in, and then walking into the arena not happy about your ticket situation.
Yeah, wasn't I just yelling frustrated over and over again?
I am hot right now.
Oh, that's right. Because, that will call situation really pissed me off. But
It was a good show. It was a good show, though. I agree. It seems like the whole running a 4 to 5 to 6 hour wrestling show thing is rubbing off from WWE and all of the other wrestling promotions because pretty much every show we went to, Justin, was pretty lengthy.
The length of the ROH show almost ruined it for me. And I'm sorry, unless you're WWE, if you're going to be more than 3 hours, you need to let your fans know because I don't think we were mentally prepped for a 5-hour Ring of Honor show.
No, we were hoping to hit Bourbon Street that night, and we got home and no chance. We were pretty gassed. It was a long night. I think it's time to maybe trim some fat off of the cards here because we didn't need a 5-hour Ring of Honor show.
Not only that, but they had a 30-minute intermission too.
Yeah, what's up with that? Ring of Honor. I love the show. Some great matches. We don't need to have an intermission on a pay-per-view event. That really kind of, I thought I killed the momentum of the show. Definitely.
Yeah, agree.
So, but I don't know. Perhaps the best Perhaps the best match of the weekend was that ladder match I saw in person. That one at Ring of Honor with the Bucks and Top Rope Nation alum Flip Gordon. Excellent match. Ospreay and Riddle, like Kyle said, is about exactly a week ago right now. Well, a little bit later, but about a week ago. Awesome match. Kyle, what was your favorite match you saw over the weekend?
Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa.
Yeah. 5
And
stars.
by the way, Meltzer gave it 5 stars. I would agree with that. I called it right afterwards the best match I have ever seen live in 30 plus years of going to shows. Now I was pretty into it, and it was as you guys know, the reason that I chose TakeOver over the Ring of Honor show was that match, and in my sense that match was going to happen. And I loved every bit of it. And by the way, TakeOver was kind of the exception to the rule of the week in the sense that it had the right match close, and it was not too long of a show.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. You were in and out, and you saw 2 5-star matches.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I saw some people. I forgot somebody was like, "Yeah, when somebody said this on Twitter. I can't remember who it was. They were like, "Yeah, when I prefer one so much to the other, I really can't give them both 5." And that's kind of where I'm at. I didn't. The ladder match was great. I think it was one of the great opening matches in WWE history. I don't think it was quite a 5-star match, though. I definitely preferred Gargano and Ciampa to it.
Has there ever been a WWE show in history that got 2 matches with 5 stars from Meltzer? Because I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Not from Meltzer. WrestleMania 10, for some, would.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it would. Like, I would give both Bret Owen and Razor Shawn 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's always the issue of watching Razor and Shawn with 2018 glasses on, and maybe it doesn't hold up as much, but at the time, for me, I would have given both those 5 stars, and I kind of stand by that.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, the context of the time, for sure, the ladder match and Bret Owen.
But the interesting, the ladder match may have been the second best match I saw of the week. You mentioned Riddle and Ospreay, which headlined the WWN Super Show that we were all at. That was a top 5 match for me. Walter against Pierre Carlolet. I absolutely loved it. It was the reason I stayed for the Joey Janela show. That was a top 5 match for me. Just so brutal with the chops. I don't know if anyone who saw PCO's chest on Twitter the next day, it was crazy. And then the Lucha Tag from the WrestleCon Super Show, the first night I was there in New Orleans. First show I caught. That would probably be 3rd, right behind the ladder match.
That's right. You started a day earlier than us because we were flying in. You were at that show Thursday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think those are my top 5 matches I saw the week. It's funny, and there was one. Well, TakeOver had 2, but yeah, of all the indie shows, there was at least one made my top 5, and WrestleCon was another show that the closer could be called into question.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you had the Golden Lovers, I think the crowd had peaked for Tanahashi, and in all due respect, the Flip coordinated our show and stuff like that. But it seemed like the crowd had worked themselves into believing that Okada was going to frickin' walk out and be Chuck E. T's partner. That was kind of silly, I guess, in retrospect, to think.
Mm-hmm. But Okada was in New Orleans, which was he attended WrestleMania.
Yes, yeah, to watch the Shinsuke Nakamura match. I wonder if he was just as disappointed as everyone else.
Justin and I were definitely disappointed. We'll get into that. We'll get into that one later on. Justin, any highlights for you as far as we went to 4 shows in 3 days? Got a top couple matches that you saw down in New Orleans?
Yeah, just hitting kind of all the shows we went to for Progress. I really loved the opening match with Mustache Mountain. Trent Seven and Tyler Bate are ridiculously entertaining. And even then, Will Ospreay defeated Mark Haskins in a really good match, which wasn't near as good as his match against Matt Riddle in the WWN show. But then yet the ladder match from Ring of Honor was spectacular. And, I'm sure I would have enjoyed their main events more if the show wasn't so long and they had actually made Cody and Kenny the main event, because damn near a third of that crowd left after that match. So that that arena was really empty by the time Dalton Castle and Marty Scurll started fighting. But other than that, I'd go with I really liked Charlotte Asuka and the Intercontinental title match. I thought was really. Oh, and of course the Ronda Rousey match was great. So.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Ring of Honor. As we said at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view Saturday night, Justin and I were going on and on about how we had to talk about this on the show. So I'm not going to vent too much and keep it pretty brief. But they had that great ladder match, Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky against the Bucks and Gordon. Really, really good. Maybe the best match I saw all weekend. It's up there. And right after that, they go into an intermission. And then they come out of the intermission, and they've got the Briscoes taking on Jay Lethal and Tanahashi, which was sweet to see Tanahashi, but at the same time, like, it's a ROH tag team title match, so you know that there's zero chance that Tanahashi is going to be one half of the ROH tag team. Like, there's no way he's going to win the match. So when you had this 30-minute intermission, then you had a match where you knew exactly what the outcome was going to be, and then they followed that up with Silas Young and Kenny King, which was not a bad match, but I mean, on such a long card, it wasn't the most interesting match to see. It just took so much steam out of the show. And then right after that, like Justin said, then they had Cody Omega, which for sure should have been the main event. I felt so bad for Scurll and Castle when they went out there in the main event slot, because this was the biggest crowd ROH has ever done, like 6,000 people. And a couple thousand, probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating, a couple thousand people left during the main event because those people came to see Cody and Omega. And I get the traditionalist argument that you got to put the title match on last, but when you're having such a huge show and it's so obvious that Cody Omega drew the house, you have to put that on last. And it definitely took away a lot from the Scurll Castle match, which was also a good match, but it was somewhat ruined by the crowd filing for the exits, I thought.
Yeah, we'll juxtapose that with the TakeOver show, where they didn't go with the title match last.
Exactly.
They went with Gargano and Ciampa. You know, there's no golden rule to doing that. I mean, I think you just need to put, you know, I mean, obviously with WrestleMania, they'd probably like to have the main event back. Although I think no matter where you put Reigns on the show, the crowd was going to revolt against him. We'll get into that in a little bit. But, you know, I just, you know, I think it's not an exact science, but, you know, you have to get over the concept, oh, title match has to be last. No, it doesn't. You know, I mean, you can go back to WrestleMania 18, WrestleMania 25. The title match should not have gone on last in either of those occasions. And I think you just need to know what your hottest program is.
Yeah. Yeah, so Progress, went to Progress Thursday. I just wanted to say I thought the Progress show was really cool. Always wanted to see them in person, so it was cool to see an actual chapter show happen here in the United States. That show definitely got off to kind of a slow start, too. You know, you had the talking segment to open the show like they always do. And then we had Mustache Mountain come out with Drake and Gibson, and they went back and forth for at least 5 minutes talking in the ring. But once the show finally started, lots of good action. Loved going to Mercury Rising with both of you guys and not just hanging out, cashing some drinks. Good time.
And by the way, big props to the guys from Post Wrestling for not burying us on their podcast, because we were sitting right next to them and being very obnoxious.
I'm going to have to check out. Have you checked out the show this week?
Yeah, I listened to it specifically to see if they'd bury us.
Or these annoying guys next to us. No.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice them there. You guys mentioned that afterwards, and you know, I'm familiar with what they look like. That's how into the drinks I was, I guess. I did not notice them at all.
I was too busy laughing at Kyle's friend yelling Sawa.
I love this sport. I love this sport. Kyle Ross, trademark. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good
Oh,
stuff.
it got that got way out of hand during the PCO Walter match at Janella Spring Break. I mean, I was just like picking up the garbage can and hitting it on the ground, yelling, "I love this sport."
So right before we recorded tonight, I went on Twitter to see if anyone had any comments they wanted us to talk about tonight or any questions for us. And one of the questions I got, favorite match of the weekend, which we've already kind of discussed. Someone said, what was the most degenerate thing you saw or did on Bourbon Street? Now that is a good question. Oh man, I'm gonna have to think on that one for a minute. The most degenerate thing you saw on Bourbon Street. Kyle, you might have an entertaining story there. I don't know.
I saw Buff Bagwell hanging out, and everyone was taking pictures, and I just wanted to go up to him and be like, "Hey, man, WCW dropped the ball in '98. They should have kept you as a babyface." But I don't think he wanted to hear that, so I didn't do it. But but no, honestly, I was multiple back-to-back times. On what night was it? It was after Mania, so it was Sunday night. Man, I had some guy come up to me, man. Hey, man, you looking for that white? You looking for that white? Like, I'm cool.
My God. We could not go out. I wish we could have gone out after WrestleMania, but we had to get up at 3:00 in the morning to catch our flight back. So,
holy fuck!
It was right back to the B&B for us, and I think we got about an hour and a half of sleep max before we flew back to Iowa. So that was quite the night.
I know what your guys. It wasn't on Bourbon Street, but I know what your guys' answer should be.
What was that? I'm thinking. I don't know. Go ahead.
It revolves around you getting home late at your Airbnb.
Which night?
that would be the night that we bought some cigars on Bourbon Street and went back and sat on our patio.
Okay, I know what you're referring to. Our neighbors. Yes. We heard some after-hours activity from our neighbors who happened to be all women. So that was an interesting night for Justin and I as we sat on the patio.
Taking each other to Pound Town, huh?
Yes. Oh, God. Another question. How many hurricanes did you have? I got to say, the first night we got there, Justin and I headed out. We went to, was it O'Brien's? Is that the name of the place?
Yes, Pat O'Brien's.
Pat O'Brien's, which is like supposed to be the place the hurricane was invented. We went in there. I got a hurricane. Probably my favorite drink all weekend. Just to get a hurricane there and walk in the French Quarter for the very first time. That was a hell of a night. So I really enjoyed. Was that Thursday night? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, as a wrestling fan that comes from a town where I don't come across for many wrestling fans, to hit Bourbon Street really late at night on our first night with Ryan. I'm wearing my Valor Club sweatshirt. We just get hurricanes, and I think I had a vodka water, and just walking down the street and just everybody wanting to do the too sweet. If you've never been to WrestleMania, you got to go at least once. It's so much fun, especially if it's in New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say the only hurricane that I got all weekend was when I was sitting with you guys in that one bar, and Corey Graves walks by, takes one look in the bar, and goes, "Yeah, I'm not going in here."
501 Bourbon Street wasn't that the name of the bar?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good spot.
801 Royal.
Or 801 Royal, yeah.
Yeah. And then my Uber app didn't work.
That's right. You were kind of wandering around looking for a ride home.
Yeah. My buddy had to come get me. He's like, "I would never do this again for you."
Oh, you had a car?
My buddy drove. Yeah, my buddy drove from Florida.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay. Yeah, we had a car for like one afternoon. Our buddy Derek from the Oversaw podcast, his cousin drove us to a brewery on the other side of New Orleans. Partaked in some crawfish. It was a good time. Had some beers. Hadn't had crawfish before, so really getting the whole New Orleans experience that day. And that was before Ring of Honor, or not before Ring of Honor. That was before Mercury Rising. That was on Friday, so that was right before we saw you, Kyle.
Yeah.
So, should we get into WrestleMania and the direction WWE is going to be heading? Or you guys have any closing thoughts on our meetup and our trip last weekend?
Yeah, got to do it again, man.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's all I got to say.
That was a good time. We're going to have to work out something maybe here in the Midwest, because I am not going to, unless they pull out some match I just have to see live. I think there's very little chance I'm going to New York for WrestleMania next year.
That's what I told the guys in my group and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do it, but who knows? I'm weak-minded. I can easily, my arm can be twisted easily.
Well, all I know is we cannot wait 2 years until we hang out again. So hopefully we can set up something before.
Agreed.
So WrestleMania, we're not going to recap the whole card or anything like that, because every podcast the Sun has done that by now. But I think there's a lot to talk about as far as direction in the next couple of weeks, and if not months. Got a lot of interesting things going on here with Rusev lately. This greatest Royal Rumble show happening in Saudi Arabia here in 2 weeks from tonight, actually, as we record this.
Should we go to that? You want to go there?
Yeah, let's go right with it.
No, I meant like, do you guys want to meet up in Saudi Arabia? Like, maybe
no.
that'll be our next
no.
meetup.
God, no. Especially as the news and what's going on in that part of the world right now. I don't think so.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Probably not.
Is that show in trouble? Are they going to have to move it to the LA Sports Arena now?
Okay, let's just talk about Rusev, because speaking of, being in New Orleans, that Rusev Day shirt is probably the most popular shirt in the company right now, if New Orleans is any indication. Everywhere I went, I saw that shirt. The Rusev Day chants were the night we got there, on the first night we went on Bourbon Street. Rusev Day chants on Bourbon Street. Rusev Day chants in the Superdome on the very narrow, I must add, concourse of the Superdome. How in the hell are they doing nothing with this guy? I tweeted about this the other day. What a blown opportunity. And he was supposed to be wrestling The Undertaker in the casket match in 2 weeks in Saudi Arabia. And that match has now been changed.
That seems dicey. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't think it's good for Rusev.
Chris Jericho has now been plugged into the match, so I assume Rusev will just be in the Battle Royal.
If he makes the trip.
So it's all kind of dicey, but it all started, I guess Rusev had tweeted, "Bury me softly, brother," in the response to being...
Which I laughed at.
That was funny, being in the match with The Undertaker. And then not long after that, he was pulled from the match, and then they kind of tried to play it off as Lana not wanting her man to be in a casket match with The Undertaker. I don't know, Kyle, what are your thoughts?
All right, I'm going to play bad cop for just a minute here, because I totally agree with you that, like, as we're walking around town, like, Rusev Day is like one of the top chants you hear. I mean, that, and Adam Cole Bebe was the other. I mean, I've been critical of Adam Cole on the show before. I don't think his ceiling is as high as others do, but I got to say, man, I mean, this guy clearly connects with a lot of people, and he came across as a star at that TakeOver show. But Rusev, yeah, okay, there was a lot of people chanting for him, but do you know what the irony of the weekend and the Rusev Day chants were? Do you know when they were at their lowest? It seemed to be when he was out there wrestling.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like, when that U.S. title match happened, and granted, it had to follow 2 good matches that opened the show, and it was kind of in a tough spot. But man, it didn't seem like, and it's funny you said that, because I was going to say, was it just me? During that U.S. title match, it didn't seem like the crowd was going crazy for him. Yeah. They were, of course, ironically, right before he eats the fall from Jinder, the chant picked up. But it just seemed like, okay, here's your chance to chant Rusev Day. The guy's actually out in front of you, and you're not really doing it.
I'm not going to lie, we hit the bathroom during that match, but...
Okay.
Yeah, it was... Justin actually commented on that as we were out one night, and Justin, you can explain it, but your thoughts on the Rusev Day chant and why people do it.
Oh man, I was probably drunk whenever I said that, but I think it's just, I don't think it has anything to do with Rusev. I think they just like chanting it. I mean,
is it the new CM Punk?
Yeah, I would say so. It's these certain fans that catch on to certain things. Like, I almost think that any wrestler could have just, like Aiden English Day or, whoever. It wouldn't have mattered. They just like the concept of it, which...
Well, that doesn't speak well to pushing Rusev then. I mean, it's just the chant's over and not the guy.
I think that's what it is, though. I don't think WWE thinks he's over. And if what you said is correct, that the U.S. title match is one of the few matches I haven't gone back and rewatched yet, for obvious reasons, because I don't like Randy Orton. But if they didn't even chant that they should have been chanting that the entire fucking match.
Yeah, I mean, there was Rusev Day chants, but it was not like this overwhelming thing that, you know, you just couldn't ignore. You know, I was kind of like, I was looking, I was like, oh, wow, people aren't that into Rusev now. It's like, here he is, you know, and it's very clear the promotion doesn't either understand it or doesn't like it. But
or Rusev's on his way out and they don't want to promote it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not. Here's the thing, okay? But let me switch hats here. If you're WWE, there's no harm in running with something like this. There's no harm whatsoever in giving the guy the U.S. title and if it doesn't work, like if you give the crowd what they want and it kind of just plateaus and it really doesn't go anywhere and he isn't super over, well, who cares? Just take the title off him. I mean, how many times do we see, you know, these secondary titles, you know, kind of have, you know, a meaningless holder for just a bit of time, and it doesn't change anything. Like, there's no harm in giving, like, to me, it's easy. Like, if I was on WWE Creative, I'd be like, let's just make things easy on us. Let's give Rusev a run, and if it doesn't work, who cares? Like, I'm not here saying on this podcast, you know, Rusev would be the greatest fucking U.S. champion of all time, and you would just, like, you know, start just drawing all money, and it would just be so awesome. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the guy's over. He was the most over guy. Like, even if the chants were kind of weak, to me, he's still the most over guy in the match.
Well, and that's exactly it. And I think that's something we're going to get to later with a certain other wrestler is WWE's tendency to refuse to ride a wave and then to try and just arbitrarily create one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I get what you guys are saying as far as the chant goes, and we talked about that when we were down there. Like, the chant's over maybe more than the guy. But at the same time, you know, there is interest in him, and I don't think people are spending $25 on a T-shirt if they are not at least interested in the guy.
That's true. And remember, there was actually debate at one point, as crazy as it may seem, you know, 6 years removed now, where people were wondering, is Daniel Bryan over, or is it just the yes chants, or do people just like chanting yes? Mm-hmm. And it turns out, obviously, there's a genuine connection. Daniel Bryan's very over, but you don't know unless you try. And, you know, to me, it's kind of, man, it's crazy if Rusev would just walk. I don't know what his future is. I mean, it doesn't look good right now, but I mean, that's crazy just not to capitalize at all. And it seemed almost as if they were shoehorning him into staying a heel on TV, you know?
Yeah.
They weren't, I mean, they were just kind of like, yep, you're who we just think you are. And it goes back, I think, to that, what was it? Was it 2015 when him and Lana announced they were engaged?
Yeah,
and
that's
remember,
right.
They did not like that, man. They had plans for them to, you know, be feuding, and they announced through TMZ that they were engaged. And man, I mean, you can trace kind of their downfall to that moment. WWE.
Yeah, weren't they? They were split at the time it was announced, I think, and then they just put them right back together because of that.
Yes, they were feuding. Summer Rae was with Rusev, and Lana was with Ziggler.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And the reports were WWE wasn't happy with that, and if you look, man, Rusev ain't done much since, and Lana's star certainly fell after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that U.S. title pictures, what they've done is mind-blowing. Like, I would have never imagined, of the guys in the match, Jinder was going to win, and then Randy Orton would be the program they'd go with.
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Like, it's almost like, you know, like I saw somebody, like, tweet, you know, they just ask Randy, well, who do you want to work with? And he just says, Jinder. And it's like, well, okay, that's the match, you know.
Yeah, well, Rusev he tweeted something along the lines of it's time for a change or something. So I don't know what the heck is going on there, but you're right. It's pretty insane if they just let this guy walk, considering how popular he is and the chance is over.
And he's talented.
Yeah,
Forget about like Rusev Day. He's a talented performer. So
yeah. So we will have to see what happens there. But Rusev Day is over. Rusev the wrestler is definitely over, I think. And I think they're blowing it. So Moving on, you guys. What do you think of? We didn't really talk about it, but Rousey's debut, I was pretty damn impressed. I think that was the best match of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't think that could have gone any better.
Did you think that she was gonna tap Triple H?
Yes, I did. And when it happened. Well, to be fair though, I also thought that she was going to tap Stephanie like twice before she actually did. Mm-hmm. So that was just me.
Yeah.
I would like to know how many hours they spent choreographing that match, because I have to think every second of that thing was planned. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I loved it. It was entertaining as hell. There was, 3 or 4 moments when I thought the match was over and it just kept going, and I loved it. But they did a really good job of protecting Ronda in that one.
According to I think I read in the Observer this week that they've been working on that match for weeks, step by step. So
yeah,
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, and I'm with some other people here. Allow me to be the last to say that if there was one kind of negative to the match, it was the idea that Stephanie could survive multiple armbar attempts. Mm-hmm. Like the first time Ronda went for it, I'm like, okay, this is over. Now this is pro wrestling, and there's a certain suspension of disbelief. And I rewatched it again, the match, and yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that. I mean, it's no worse really than Shane McMahon being presented as an in-ring equal to AJ Styles last year at WrestleMania. I mean, that was, when you think about it, kind of silly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I know Ronda, legit tough, whatever. Yeah. And for her first match to kind of not have the armbar just finish someone in like 5 seconds. Okay, I can see that criticism. Now, knowing the way WWE works, they're going to have the full-time members of the roster tap out really quickly to it to get that move over, is what I suspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing watching live.
I just don't think it could have been any better, that match. I mean, and the key was, and we'll get into this with Roman, is how the crowd reacted to her. I mean, it was universally positive. Mm-hmm. It was, there was no boos whatsoever. There was no smarmy, bizarro world nonsense. I mean, the crowd treated her like a huge babyface star. WWE could not have been happier with that match, in my opinion. It's
weird when the crowd reacts appropriately to babyface and heel dynamics, how much fun a match can be. Weird. Weird.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I was a little worried that the fans were going to be a little negative on her, so I was happy about it, because man, Justin and I had some people in our section that were just massive tools throughout the entire show. There's this guy, oh my God, I could go on and on. There's this guy 3 or 4 rows in front of us in a Bullet Club shirt, and just like, oh man, prototypical guy that's completely getting worked and doesn't realize it.
By the way, I want to say something about, because people always talk about how many Bullet Club shirts there are at WWE events. You know what I found interesting is how there are all these Bullet Club shirts at TakeOver, but it's like, guys, the Bullet Club show is across town. Like, I find it interesting that, okay, because people are like, oh yeah, man, people like, the Bullet Club more than like WWE. It's like, well, they had their chance to go see it there at WWE.
That is interesting. Maybe they bought the travel package.
I don't know. It's like, maybe they just like the shirt, but I mean, I just think it's interesting and needs to be kept in mind that, okay, they have fine, they're wearing Bullet Club shirts, but they're not at the show where Kenny and Cody are wrestling.
Mm-hmm. He this guy in the shirt, who was that he booed or that he cheered when they turned? Justin, it wasn't Nakamura, was it? I can't remember now, but
I don't even remember.
Yeah. I don't know. He was cheering someone that was trying to be booed, and then I turned to Justin and I was like, this guy is the exact reason why they aren't turning Reigns heel, because then everyone's just going to cheer him anyways. And then I was like, I guarantee you this guy's going to be like just screaming like crazy against Roman later. And so when Roman comes out, of course, he's throwing up middle fingers and everything else. And it's like, if Roman turned, this guy would be cheering him 100%.
I got to say, I had a different experience behind me. These kids were probably in high school. And for paying as much as maybe their parents paid for the tickets, I don't know. But for as much as those tickets cost, they didn't know a lot about the card. Like going in, they were like, "Oh, who's Ronda's partner again?" And they didn't know names of I don't think they knew Finn Balor's name.
Oh man.
I'm not going to even comment on how they refer to Nia Jax, but I mean, there were multiple people they didn't know the names. It was very odd.
That's pretty surprising to be at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and they also claimed, quote, Vince is going to get rich off the XFL.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
All right, let's just maybe just take this right into the Roman thing, because I was mind blown that he didn't win the title just like everybody else. And I got to think, looking at what they're doing here, they're holding it off, and I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to win the title overseas at Greatest Royal Rumble. Nobody seems to know if Brock is there long term, short term. If he re-signed for one match, it's kind of up in the air right now. We know he re-signed for some period of time to keep working, and just the idea of Roman coming up short yet again, has his time passed? Is there no hope at all now for Roman Reigns to be what they want him to be, Kyle?
Oh, there's no chance that he's going to be what okay, let me preface that. If your question means, okay, is he going to be this universally adored babyface?
Not even that, just like the star, like the main eventer.
I guess he still can, but look, here's what we know. Roman Reigns is a good wrestler, okay? We've been over this many, many times. He's a very good pro wrestler, okay? If I were to make a list of the 10 best Roman Reigns and Shinsuke Nakamura matches from 2017, do you know what I would call that list? The 10 best Roman Reigns matches of 2017, okay? Because it's not even close. I mean, how many more quality matches he had than Nakamura? And we'll get to Nakamura because I think there's an interesting juxtaposition to go with there. But look, there were a couple marks not in Roman's favor that night. I talked earlier about Ronda and how the crowd reacted to her. Man, if you look at this whole Mania card, the only thing the crowd reacted to in a manner that the promotion didn't want them to was Roman. This was not a quote-unquote bizarro world crowd. This was not a crowd shitting on a lot of the stuff WWE was offering. I mean, if you looked at, they cheered Ronda. Granted, they positioned a lot of people in the right way, I think, throughout the card. But, man, it stuck out like a sore thumb. And it caught me by surprise a little bit because I thought they had done a pretty good job building it. Obviously, I did not think he was going to get, more cheers than boos. But, man, it was a disaster. And go ahead.
The problem is that normally he gets booed at least. This was just like immediately they broke out the beach balls and everybody just fucking tuned out. Not me. I at least I knew what the match was going to be because it was a Brock Lesnar match, but it was, it was bad. It was really bad how they booked that match. And one of my biggest problems is if you don't like somebody, boo them, but don't ignore what they're trying to do for you in the ring. And if you really want to make a fucking statement, walk out, leave the arena.
Or just don't go. I find that very odd. To me, the idea that you didn't know Roman Reigns would be featured prominently on this card when you bought the ticket seems shocking to me. Now, I guess if whatever you want to make this big political statement about it, you want to have your voice heard, you have the right to cheer boo who you want. I think the big problem with this match, and was the same damn thing as WrestleMania 20, and this is what caused the indifference, and this is why the match was booked so stupidly in retrospect, is that the crowd didn't care about Brock because they assumed he was leaving. So it was a guy that almost everyone didn't want to win the title against a guy that nobody cared about. And that's just a bad dynamic. And if you look at the way the match was, I mean, no one benefited from this whatsoever. You had, I mean, they've been building up this whole thing with Roman kicking out of the F5. And it was met with like crickets. Like when that happened, I was like, oh, fuck, this is a disaster. But then you proceed to have Roman kick out of the F5 like 5 or 6 times. And I don't know what value that does, really. Because, Brock didn't come out of this thing looking good either. And, in Vince's head, I guess he was like, well, all right, I guess it's not going to work in front of this crowd, so I'll give him Brock kicking Roman's ass. Well, he outsmarted himself because everyone in the crowd just assumed Brock was going to lose, and no one enjoyed the match. I mean, it was a failure on multiple levels in a way that few main events have failed before in the history of wrestling.
Well, we can blame Michael Hayes for the layout of the match because apparently he was the agent that put it together.
But he didn't even know the finish, apparently. Keep in mind. I mean, this is Vince. This is on Vince. And I want to go back to Roman because there is another thing. I was talking, my buddy next to me, he doesn't like Roman Reigns at all either, and was like gleeful that this happened to him. And he did, I kind of thought he was an asshole, and we got into an argument. Quite frankly, I just wanted to argue with him outside the Superdome. No, I didn't even want to go to Bourbon Street. I just want to argue with this guy about the state of WWE. But he does make a good point about Roman, and this is another mark against him. So obviously everyone compares Roman to John Cena in terms of the split reactions. But this seems different with John. With John, it kind of morphed into something almost maybe playful, where it was just like this, just dueling chants. It was kind of fun to be a part of that. And by the way, John Cena is hugely popular with a large percentage of the audience. I don't know if Roman is really, and John Cena, whether you like him or not, is a babyface character, right? Hustle, loyalty, respect. That's a babyface character. Whether you think he's corny, you just don't like the character, it's a babyface character. Is Roman a babyface character? Or is he just a babyface because they tell us he's a babyface? Like, my buddy's point is, like, he just kind of comes out like an entitled asshole. And if you watch it, he kind of does.
That's exactly it. He has been done no favors by their booking. For one, if you're trying to get like the smarks to like him, don't have him call Brock Lesnar Vince McMahon's boy, because everybody thinks that he is Vince McMahon's boy. And then when you come out on Raw, don't complain about getting another title shot,
Yeah, that promo was so bad. And then they have, and see, that's the thing. Like, people think like he's being pushed down our throats or whatever. I have never seen an alleged ascendant babyface booked so poorly,
or lose in big spots so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's Lex Luger all over again, right? I mean, they would get Lex, the old story of WCW. They get Lex hot. He would wrestle Flair, and then he'd lose. And it'd be like, okay, well, what now? And eventually it just kind of killed Lex. I mean, Lex did win the title when Flair left, but by that point he kind of stopped trying.
Yeah. No,
and that promo, I just wanted to mention because I thought about it. That promo Justin mentioned. That's another, like, how can you? They basically had him doing like Bret Hart in 1997, like whining, and then you have Samoa Joe return, which is going to get a pop, and he eviscerates him, pointing out what a freaking loser Reigns is. Like, how do you think like this is getting Roman Reigns over as a babyface? And yeah, okay, we can talk about how the guy kind of comes across as a prick. We can talk about, maybe he's not as popular as John Cena, whatever. But he's not booked well at all. And Vince's obsession with, the coronation. Oh, I'm going to do it at this moment in time, and the flowers will bloom, and all will be right with the WWE universe. man, just shit or get off the pot. I mean, this should have happened years ago. Yeah. Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about New Orleans. It should have happened years ago. It's like Sting. I referenced this before on the show. WCW thought, we're going to have Sting beat Ric Flair. We're going to be competing with Vince again. Well, not really. You waited too long. And now part of it was Sting got hurt. And it wasn't all their fault, but they still even waited too long, I thought, before that.
You made a good point with the promo being like Brett in 97 because... when Joe came out and just completely destroyed him on the mic Monday night, it was just like when Brett would be out there whining, doing the heel character, and then Steve Austin would come out and tell him why he was such a loser. That's like exactly like Samoa Joe is exactly like Steve Austin in that scenario. And yeah, I don't see how that does him any favors. You're right. He's been booked terrible ever since this run began. The scripting of his promos 3 years ago was terrible. He was put into awkward situations like winning the Rumble when everyone wanted to see Daniel Bryan win the Rumble.
And again, that's not on Roman Reigns.
No, that's
on the promotion, because like for the promotion not to see that is insane. Like Daniel Bryan, it's one thing when the crowd just like wants a guy to win. Okay. It's another thing when that guy, Daniel Bryan, has a legitimate story, and it's a good story to be told, how he's coming back to win a title he never lost. Yeah. And the crowd that has every reason in the world to cheer for Daniel Bryan going into that match. Mm-hmm. And then you eliminate him early to just piss everyone off.
Yeah, it definitely shows a complete lack of understanding of the crowd the way Roman Reigns has been positioned. He has definitely been handicapped by the promotion more than anything, and that's why I posed the question, like, does he even have a chance to be a consistent main eventer that really takes off, whether it's a heel or a face? Because I just think the way they've continued to delay this so-called coronation that McMahon wants has just done him so much harm that I almost feel like the time is completely past. Like there is no hope whatsoever. They need to move on to somebody else.
I think if they do an actual heel turn, do like a Roman Empire actual group, there's still hope for him, because then the crowd's going to get back into it and turn him babyface 2 years from now. Because he is an excellent ring performer. He has great matches.
I almost wonder if it's too late for the heel turn. I almost wonder if they've blown it on that.
No, it's never too.
Okay, I mean, it'll have to, but they're going to have to be careful how they do it so that, I mean, okay, yes, eventually you can turn him heel with the thought, okay, he'll get over, the crowd will respect him more, he can become a babyface. But you don't want the people just basically cheering out of fantasy booking. Like, oh yeah, he's a heel, we won. And then you lose the heat. You have to be careful. It's really interesting, by the way, talk about a guy who turned heel, Shinsuke Nakamura at WrestleMania, right? It's funny, nobody really wants to juxtapose those two guys, whether it's the promotion or people who like Nak and don't like Roman. Because, okay, take a look at Nakamura. Let's just be honest here. He wasn't getting over as a babyface. He had one, and the decision obviously had been made before this match to do it. But, that match certainly wasn't helping him get over as a babyface in New Orleans. And so they take a look at a guy who they thought, okay, this is a baby. Maybe we can build a brand around Shinsuke Nakamura as a babyface. Well, there was absolutely zero evidence of that in 2017. And so what did they do? They turned him heel. But people don't, like, the promotion doesn't want to do the same thing with Roman, and then you have the other side of the coin, people who like kind of are unwilling to realize what they want them to do with Roman they did with Shinsuke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think some of it with Shinsuke though too is also on the promotion. Like he has been booked pretty poorly as well. I agree with you. I know frequent critic of him here on the show, and I agree that his run in WWE has been less than stellar. His performances really haven't lived up to the hype. But the way he's been used on television, I think, has also handicapped him too. The promos they make him do, which have been just like awkward babyface promos. The way he was positioned even after the Rumble victory. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things wrong with what they've done with Nakamura, and maybe the willingness to turn him heel versus Reigns has something to do with Nakamura is simply just not in their long-term plans. He's not going to be around that long. He's a lot older. But whereas Reigns, they see him as like the future for a decade, and I think that's kind of why they've been hesitant. They really want to push this babyface Reigns thing.
Oh yeah, I mean it boils down to one guy's a Vince pet project, the other one isn't. And I also got to say this: I think I like Shinsuke Nakamura as a heel. Oh
yeah. I think he'll be a great heel.
Did you see the backstage interview with him on Tuesday?
Yeah. It was great, and somebody tweeted something great when he interfered in the Bryan Styles match. It's like, what if Shinsuke Nakamura's gimmick all along was just ruining good wrestling matches?
That's another thing, by the way, we didn't mention with Rusev is when Paige was out there talking about who Bryan was going to wrestle, and the crowd started chanting Rusev, and then they edited that out of the YouTube version of the show. Did you see that? It's just another thing that they've been doing with Rusev.
That's when they did it. Okay, I saw the headline. I didn't click on it.
Yeah, so they posted a clip of that segment on their YouTube page, and they edited the crowd reaction for the crowd to be cheering for AJ when in fact they were actually cheering for Rusev.
Well, they did cheer for AJ afterwards.
Yeah, but they actually physically went in and edited the chants and like moved them up over when they were chanting for Rusev.
We'll have to get Meltzer on it when he's done arguing with people on Twitter about random wrestlers' heights.
So anyways, yeah, the AJ Nakamura match definitely didn't live up to the hype. It was a good match, but
I don't think it was.
I think it was a good match, but nothing special. Like it was like a good television match. It wasn't like a great pay-per-view match. It wasn't a bad match.
No, I agree with Ryan. In the moment in the arena, which is also another thing, is that was the first time I've watched a wrestling match in that big of an arena. That's a huge adjustment, especially for a fan.
Yeah.
And sitting in an arena for 7 hours, you're going to lose some steam. And that match was built for that arena to lose steam during it. But I recently rewatched it. It's not that bad of a match. It's just the expectations of it being a New Japan match or comparable to their Wrestle Kingdom match. It was never gonna ever live up to the expectations.
It didn't get enough time. We said that at the show.
I don't know about that. It got 20 minutes, man. It got 20 minutes.
It needed 30 minutes plus. Here's the deal.
No, it didn't.
Yes.
On a 7-hour show, you're giving that match 30 minutes.
Here's the deal.
Nuts.
Here's the deal. Well, then, if they're not going to get more time, Kyle, they should have hit the accelerator earlier in the match.
Yes. And they knew they weren't getting 30 minutes.
But here's the thing though. So when he gets pinned after the Styles Clash, me and Justin looked at each other like we thought that's when the match was going to finally kick into high gear. I mean, how many people have kicked out of the Styles Clash since AJ's been in WWE? And he gets pinned at WrestleMania right away from a Styles Clash. One Styles Clash. That was mind-blowing to me. I thought, all right, he's going to kick out, and then this is when they're going to put it into high gear. And the match never really got to that level. And that's kind of how Nakamura's whole WWE run has been. His matches haven't lived up to the hype.
I know. That's what I've been saying. Who's that on?
Yeah, that Sami Zayn match in NXT is like the one match that's really blown people away, the first one. And since that, he hasn't had a match that good since.
Oh, not even close. I mean, I liked both Bobby Roode matches at the two takeovers, but no, he has not had a great main roster match yet. And I mean, come on, man. I mean, if it was somebody else, if it was Randy Orton, we'd be piling all on the performer. And I'm just saying that, like, maybe he worked now that he's heel, he can work different, and it can translate into better matches. But at some point, we just got to look at the performer and say, what are you doing, man?
Mm-hmm.
And I warned, like, the other thing too is both of them going into that match as baby faces. The crowd they didn't want to boo either guy, and they didn't want to necessarily pick one guy or the other, and it just made for kind of a tough dynamic, I think. And they were like struggling early for things. That's all. As soon as I started seeing that, I'm like, oh, this is always the sign that they're going for an epic and they're going to fall short. And that's what happened.
Yeah, that's a good point. The first half of that WrestleMania, I mean, we'd all gone in talking about, holy shit, this could be the greatest WrestleMania ever. And then through the first half of that WrestleMania, it's like, holy shit, this could be the greatest WrestleMania ever. And then it just fucking nosedived.
I thought the show probably peaked with Daniel Bryan's entrance. Like, when Daniel Bryan came down, I was like, dude, I was just like, this show is just unbelievable. It's delivering on all cylinders. Like, even with a couple of the first, we haven't even talked about the booking of the SmackDown women's division yet, which I think has not been good, quite frankly. Even with, anyone who listened to our show last week, it's very clear that I do not have a voice in the New York booking office because I was wrong about everything. But like, even with some of the questionable booking, I was like, this show's hitting a home run. But, once they did that thing where they took Bryan out and Shane McMahon had to work that long heat segment, I don't think the show ever recovered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 100% agree.
Shane sucked in that match. And whether he's hurt or whatever, God bless him. But, that match was hurt by the Ronda tag going first. Yeah. Because we had already seen a big-time hot tag on the card. Built to, and they were kind of going for the same thing where, okay, Shane would sell forever. He would make the big tag. Bryan would come in, do all his spots, and the crowd would go crazy. And I think because the crowd had already seen a hot tag built to and went crazy for it, I think they were just not up to do it again.
Mm-hmm. No, I said that at the show to Justin when we kind of were talking during the match and were stunned at how dead the place was. And I had said that it was a big mistake to take Bryan out right away. And then he's not involved in the match for like 10 plus minutes or whatever it was. And
because I think the crowd thought they were going to get ripped off, like Meltzer wrote that. Yeah. But, that match was good. I mean, there were other things I could complain. I mean, Daniel Bryan comes back. He looks really strong. I mean, whatever, that was good. But I think his entrance was the peak of the show. I mean, Cena Undertaker, the crowd was rolling, and I got to say this. So earlier I heard you reference the narrow corridors of the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. So I'm walking around the concession area, and Cena's music hits. I have never been a part of anything like this in my life. I mean, it was a full-on stampede. Parents picking up their children and running. I saw two grown men run into each other. People trying to peek through the curtains. I mean, I'm trying to get held back to my seat. I didn't get out there until Elias came out, to be honest with you. It was a mob scene. Anyone who thinks that John Cena still can't move the needle was not in the corridor at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome when that man's music hit Sunday night.
I think in retrospect, it might not have been a bad idea to put that on last, to be honest, just to create some buzz as everyone left the Superdome, because it was just such a weird, walking out of that show and then down the streets. It was not how I imagined people leaving WrestleMania. It was just such a weird vibe, the way everyone just kind of that's how the show ends. Brock retained, okay, and everyone leaves kind of in this weird funk. I don't know, but yeah, that crowd was hot after that Undertaker Cena stuff and during, obviously.
Well, that's what's really interesting now that you bring that up is looking back as to how they booked everything. What could have you put at the end of the show that would have sent everybody home happy? I mean, I'm thinking okay, so Ronda Rousey was the best match of the night, but if you put that match on last, does it kind of kill everything? I mean, with Reigns and Lesnar being earlier, you almost have to do Reigns and Lesnar at last, because you're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just because of the spectacle and how crazy the crowd went, Cena Undertaker is the only one that you could make a legitimate case could have gone on last.
You could have made a case for you could have made a case for the Rousey thing going last.
Yeah, you could.
That's retrospect, knowing that the crowd was positive about the reaction.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even seeing it though, I'm still not sure I would have put it on last, even though it was the best match on the show, I think. But I don't. I think it would have been a sweet moment to end on Taker Cena.
Yeah, but I don't know if it wasn't really. I mean, I guess it was a match, but I
was going to say you can't do Taker Cena because that was a 3-minute match. I mean,
why not? Why can't you have a 3-minute match close the show?
I actually think they thought they had the show laid out right. It just, I don't know, it kind of got away from them, I think. But can we talk about this SmackDown Women's thing? Because it's been after SmackDown on Tuesday, it actually bothers me more than it did.
This is going to be interesting because I like where it's going.
I think Charlotte look, if you think Charlotte is the crown jewel of the women's division in WWE, that's fine. If you preferred Asuka, that's fine. I just think to end that streak, not just when they did, but how they did with a tap out, and basically, there's no room for a Charlotte Asuka. I mean, you could do a Charlotte Asuka rematch down the road, but the way the match was booked, it certainly doesn't call for it. And then, after killing the streak, having Charlotte lose to Carmella with the cliched Money in the Bank, I was not a fan of the transition. I don't think, because clearly they were afraid to have Carmella end the streak in that way, which is odd because that would have drawn heat. So you basically killed the undefeated streak. Charlotte is theoretically a made woman in that role now, and then you just beat her for the sake of the briefcase. I am not a fan. And then Asuka's streak, the streak was kind of becoming an albatross. If you watch the Mixed Match Challenge, you would know what I mean. Like, it was kind of silly, like, because when you were watching it, you're like, well, they're not going to end the streak in this thing, so she's going to win. I get that. But, to me, you could still get to where you're going with Charlotte and Rousey at next year's WrestleMania, but you could have Asuka beat Charlotte here, stay undefeated. You've got the money match with Asuka and Rousey, where Rousey can end Asuka's undefeated streak. And then you can go to Rousey and Charlotte next year at WrestleMania. Charlotte could beat Asuka down the line at some random point. Mm-hmm. I do not like the way that they did that at all.
The problem with that is the Raw and SmackDown alignment is you would have to flip and flop a lot. Like, I agree with you. That would be great. But with the way they did that, for one, I think a lot of us thought that Asuka Rousey is what they wanted to do for next year's WrestleMania. The big streak versus Rousey thing. That would have gotten boring really quick with how long Asuka's already been undefeated. And to have it happen as a surprise and as an actual surprise and not a deliberate choreographed surprise was a lot of fun. I was shocked. I looked at Ryan. I was like, holy shit. Did we just see that? And Charlotte Flair is she's a bigger star than Asuka, plain and simple. And by having her lose the title to Carmella by a Money in the Bank, that doesn't take anything away. Nothing, especially after being beaten by the Iconic duo.
I just look at Carmella. She's not over. And
oh no, I agree. Carmella's not ready for the title. I'm more arguing for the way they've done everything.
But to me, if they wanted Carmella to get more heat, she should have ended the undefeated streak that way. It would have drawn legit heat.
Yeah, I think people would have. It would have been kind of like the fantasy booking thing with fans, though. They would have hated it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I don't think I would be on board with Carmella ending the streak in that way either. But I prefer, if I'm picking one of the two matches, I want to see Charlotte Rousey more than Rousey Asuka. And I get I get the albatross thing on the streak, because we talked about in the show last year when he was going in the Hall of Fame, when he was the champion, I should say. I was never the biggest Goldberg fan because I always found it was boring just knowing he was always going to win. So I get that where they feel like they're kind of trapped because she's going to win every time out. Not sure I would have done it right now, but they could have done Asuka Rousey at SummerSlam and then got to Rousey Charlotte at WrestleMania next year. I don't think they had.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't think they had to rush it this early with Asuka losing, but I felt Tuesday night like Carmella coming in, winning the title. It seemed like ending Asuka's streak was completely pointless then to head to Sunday.
I just feel that like the lay of the land is far less compelling now.
Mm-hmm.
Which Carmella is the champion. Okay, Charlotte ended the streak, but she's not the champion anymore. You've set up, I guess, a lot of opponents for Charlotte with the iconic duo and Carmella, but I don't know. I just feel that they killed a lot of money matches, and the thing with Asuka tapping too, like I feel they went just right to the end of Charlotte Asuka. Like there's just no need for a rematch. She tapped.
That I agree with. I rewatched that match, and in the last 2 minutes felt extremely rushed. Like they must have had a moment where it's like, hey, we got to wrap this up.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just the finish was right. Charlotte like doing the figure 4 with the one arm because the other one was too damaged. That was perfect. But leading up to that was just too rushed.
Well, we've talked on the show about Charlotte maybe going back heel. I think they could parlay this into a Charlotte heel turn, and I could see them having Asuka win the title from Carmella like pretty quickly, and then have a deal where it's almost like Owen back in '94. So Charlotte is pissed because she's like, I just beat you. Why do you have the title kind of thing? Like she got screwed out of the title with the cash in, and then Charlotte's chasing the champion that she had just beat. And they could kind of make that into kind of a heel turn. I don't know. I could see them doing something like that. But
yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see, a year later, is the bloom off the rose with Ronda. It doesn't seem, my God, she was, the next night on Raw, the people were willing to go to the end of the earth for this woman. So, if you would have told me, 6 months ago, Ronda Rousey going into WrestleMania 35, what's she going to be? I probably would have said there's a good chance she's going to be a heel, but maybe no. Maybe you do turn Charlotte Flair into heel, and she's a heel for Rousey.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I could see, the reports are that Charlotte and Rousey could headline WrestleMania 35. I could see it happening, especially if Rousey keeps up what she's doing and stays this popular with the crowd. It's not a stretch to imagine that happening. They're certainly not going to be wrestling in Saudi Arabia, that's for sure.
No, they're not. No.
How do you guys feel about that, by the way? Maybe we can close on this. WWE, who likes to push themselves, is like on the, they're at the front of the women's sports movement, so even though they're not, right? Like they were kind of behind other sports. And then they run a show in Saudi Arabia with such a terrible record on women's rights. You guys think they should be running this show? Is it just about dollars? Or is it?
Yes.
Obviously it is just about dollars, but should they be doing it? Based on the push on the women's revolution that they do and everything. Isn't it kind of a bad look for the company to be running Saudi Arabia with no women on the show?
It's definitely about money, but it could be a catalyst for more. Just recently, I don't remember where it was, but they had the match with Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss, where granted they had to be in like completely covered up, but it's like sometimes you just have to realize what you're dealing with and realize that it might just have to be baby steps to get to where you want it to be. Yeah. In the future, if they want more of this kind of great contact, they're going to have to be more accepting of things they're not so much of accepting right now.
WWE or Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Like if they want WWE to return?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, I just look, like the women don't have to be on every card. Like no one has to be on every card. Is it
RKO out of nowhere?
Yeah, is it hypocritical? Yes, it's absolutely hypocritical. Is it something where I'm going to slam my foot to the ground? Probably not, and maybe that's shame on me.
Yeah, I mean, but how many shows has it been since they had 0 women's matches on the card? Like every house show has a women's match on the card.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is the first. I mean, since Stephanie McMahon invented women's wrestling, that summer, this is probably the first time. Yeah.
I guess I know there's a big segment of the crowd that is thinking they shouldn't have ran the show at all. They could draw a big crowd in Europe, where they could have women on the card.
Yeah, but ain't nobody paying them $10 million like them Saudis are.
Yeah, but I don't know.
What would you do for $10 million?
Sometimes it's not all about the money. I mean, come on. I've heard it all now. This is a company that makes a ton of money. If you really want to be seen as someone supporting women's rights, my God, I don't know. It's just a bad look all around, I think.
But is it like, how would you promote change then in Saudi Arabia?
I wouldn't have the show there at all. I don't think WWE is going to change anything in Saudi Arabia. My God. Yeah,
I mean, let me tell you something. I seen them front lines, man. It's going to take a lot more than Vince McMahon to change that line of thinking. Ooh wee.
It's I don't think the wrestling promotion is going to do much to change things. Unfortunately, it's I had some friends that lived in Bahrain and traveled over there, and they did not have good things to say. So. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's there's a long time before change happens, unfortunately, there, and I don't think Vince McMahon is going to be able to make that happen. But who knows? He's got the insider line to the president of the United States these days.
Hey,
are we dead?
You got
yet,
Roman Reigns over.
All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap this edition up. It's been a long week. I got to get some sleep this weekend. I know we were kind of late getting to the program this week, but we'll be back with you probably Thursday next week. So you can check out the show then. Check out the archives, topropenation.com, iTunes, Stitcher, everywhere podcasts are found. We'll be checking you guys out next week.